John chapter 14, 15, 16, and 17 all take place in a really important time. And your sermons the past few weeks have been going through this section. And I just wanted to share a couple little vignettes about these passages and some stories that might make it come up a little bit more real in your life. In John chapter 15, Jesus says, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away, and every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit." When Anna and I got married, we took home a vine. Now, this was 25 years ago. Our 25th anniversary was on Wednesday. And we got a chance to take home this beautiful, luxuriant vine because her mom thought it would be a wonderful symbol and a reminder to us, a reminder of the growth that needs to happen in marriage, the growth that needs to happen in any relationship. Well, that vine lived in a planter that was carted from our first apartment to our first condo to our first house. It went all over the world, Chicago to Pittsburgh to Denver, and it grew and grew, and it made a home on top of a bookshelf and wound its way down through the books all the way to the floor. At times, I kind of made fun of that weed because that's what a vine is. It's a weed that's taken on a significant meaning. The meaning to us was our relationship. And we kept it for almost 6 years. It's not these vines, but it kind of looked like that. But it finally died. Apparently the trek across country in a hot car was fatal for the vine. Thank goodness when Jesus talks about a vine, he's talking about being connected to himself. You see, sometimes things happen as vines grow. And we understand that in all of life, right? Whether it be the vine of your family and the shoots and the roots and the branches go out, and the vine of a relationship, a vine needs care and to be cared for. And that's what Jesus does. He connects to us, he loves us, and he paints a picture throughout these Gospels of a God who wants to make us feel connected to him. And by being connected to him, that's where life is going to come from. But I don't know about you. Sometimes I don't feel the love. Sometimes life feels like a tumbleweed. I don't feel like a luxuriant vine, but I feel like a piece of dried up branch weed that is twisted together, and all I have is dry, spindly, aimless roaming across the plains. It's not how we were made. We were made for a joy-filled life. But I think when fear creeps into our lives, sometimes, well, everything seems like it's on the downward slide. Do you remember as being a kid, when you were a kid and you went to the mall, and in the mall they had those wonderful escalators, right? And didn't you ever just try, just once, or want to try, going up the down escalator? It's really cool as a kid to do that. You try going up and you work as hard as you can, but no luck. What's cute as a kid is not cute in real life. Because sometimes life begins to feel like that downward escalator, and there's no way up. Not on our own, anyway. Especially now. Especially in this pandemic pause. There's just a lot of fear. And it's to be understood. I just opened up my retirement fund statement. Let me tell you this. I didn't know I had that much money to lose. In the middle of all of this toil and turmoil, despondence is easy. Maya Angelou, a great famous poet, once wrote, "Alone, alone. Nobody but nobody can make it out here alone." I think when we feel alone, anxiety creeps in, and we begin to look for security in things that constantly disappoint us. But in the midst of all of this, we were called to abide in fruitful, loving, joy-filled union with Jesus. We were called not to live in fear, but to abide in Jesus. How? By trusting him. By trusting that Jesus is the true vine, and abiding in him and trusting that he's going to, by being connected to him, flourish us through pruning, yes, but by nourishing us and pushing us forward. I think that's what Jesus means when he says, "Abide in me." You can't bear fruit unless you abide in me. This goes really well with what Ron was talking about last week and what Stephen will talk about in the next couple of weeks. All of this takes place with Jesus heading on a journey. It's been a journey since John 14, but the journey's not someplace that the disciples understand anything about. You see, here's the deal. John 14, 15, 16, 17 is all leading up to the cross. And the poor disciples, I think they're thinking that Jesus is a little bit sketchy, a little bit weird. He's talking about death and dying. And that should comfort us, because sometimes life is dangerous. Here's the reality. Jesus knows where he's going, and they may not have a clue. In fact, they don't. Their world's about to change. It's about to become completely unstable, unsure. They don't know what's next. And isn't that the way we feel? Jesus is still in charge. He still knows the way. But life gets really hard sometimes. We get in these pandemic pauses or these retirement regresses. Our job's on the break. Life is on the break. Everything seems to be breaking. So Jesus tells them three things throughout these chapters. He says in John 14, trust me. I've prepared everything you need. He says in John 15, abide in me. Trust me to be the source of all you need. He says in John 17, I'm praying for you so that you'll have all you need. In the midst of it all, Jesus says, trust me, abide in me, I'm praying for you. So what does confidence look like when you trust Jesus, when you abide in him, when you're letting him pray for you and you're not worrying so much? What does confidence look like that at that moment? There's a great story about Billy Graham, America's pastor, right? He told the story about being invited to a leaders' luncheon in January 2000, and he hesitated to come because he'd been struggling with Parkinson's. This was as he was getting towards the end of his life. He wasn't able to do lots of speeches or talks or sermons. But the Charlotte leaders wanted their favorite son to come and talk. And they said, we don't expect a major address. Just come, let us honor you. So Graham agreed. And when it came time for him to speak, he got up on the rostrum and he said, I'm reminded today of Albert Einstein, the great physicist who was Time's Man of the Year. There was a time, a long time ago, when Einstein was on a train coming from Princeton on a journey. And the conductor came through and was punching tickets and came to Einstein, and Einstein reached in his vest and he couldn't find his ticket. He reached in his other pocket, couldn't find it, looked in his briefcase, looked in his seat next to him, nothing. He couldn't find his ticket. And the conductor said, Dr. Einstein, I know who you are. We all know who you are. I'm sure you bought a ticket. Don't worry about it. Einstein smiled and nodded. Conductor continued on down, punching tickets, heading to the next car, and he looked back, and there was the great physicist on his hands and his knees, frantically searching. The conductor rushed back to him and said, Dr. Einstein, don't worry. I know who you are. No problem. You don't need a ticket. I'm sure you bought one. Einstein looked at him and said, young man, I too know who I am. What I don't know is where I'm going. Billy Graham continued. See the suit that I'm wearing? It's a brand new suit. My wife, my grandchildren, my children, they all think I'm getting slovenly in my old age. So I went out and I bought this new suit. It's only for 2 occasions. It's for this luncheon and one more occasion. Do you know what that is? It's the suit I'll be buried in, he said. And then he went on to say this, but when you hear I'm dead, I don't want you to immediately remember the suit that I'm wearing. I want you to remember this. I not only know who I am, I also know where I'm going. In the midst of all of the fear and challenges, Jesus is saying you can know who you are as you trust me, abide in me, and realizing that I'm praying for you. What does that confidence look like? Trusting Jesus means realizing, as he says in John 14, that he's the way, he's the truth, and he's the life.